Hi, darling. Welcome back. I just want to say that the 2Ks ate. You guys really ate. With the term I'm a 1K, you guys ate that. So, for someone who doesn't understand, what are 2Ks or 1Ks? So, 2Ks is a slang in South Africa that basically is for people who are born from the year 2000 upwards. They are called 2Ks in South Africa. And there's been a long rivalry between people who were born in the 80s, 90s, mostly people in the 80s, who were competing and saying a lot of mean things about people born in the year 2000 onwards. There've been a lot of memes online. Whenever there will be like a nostalgic picture or music or movie, a lot of the people born in the 90s and 80s would say that 2Ks can't relate. They can't relate. And that has been happening for a long time. And the 2Ks have just been taking it and laughing at jokes, people saying their ID numbers look like barcodes. And they are basically now giving us the same energy. They're giving us the same energy. And I'm aware that this is just internet banter. By a few days from now, it will be forgotten. Basically, what the 2Ks are saying now is that if you were born between the year 1000 till 1999, you are a 1K in South Africa. And the stereotypes, the videos, they were dragging a lot of the makeup. And there's something interesting. Obviously, these are generalizations, and I'm very aware that it's not true that all these stereotypes are real. For example, I was born in the late 90s. So when I was in primary and high school, I was in primary and high school around the same time as a lot of people born in the year 2000 and 2001. So we were in primary and high school around the same time. There's not a huge generational difference between someone who was born, let's say 1995, to someone born in 2003. There's very similar childhoods for those people, but I'm aware this is just the 2Ks are basically giving us the same energy that we were giving them for years. And granted, we low-key deserve it. The unfortunate thing about this is that people who were born in the late 90s, we are catching whiplash. We are catching whiplash because the people who are bullying 2Ks most of the time are people who were born in the 80s. Obviously, not all of them, but a lot of the people who were born in the 1980s were bullying 2Ks. They were the same generation that was also bullying 90s kids. Because if you actually think about it, people who were born in the late 90s and people who were born in the early 2000s, they grew up around each other. We were literally children at the same time, experiencing similar TV shows, similar music at the same time. A lot of the negative energy that I've seen comes from people born in the 80s and people born in the early 90s. But I understand this is internet banter, and I'm going to take it. I think as the 1Ks, we deserve it. We deserve it. We've been bullying the kids for years. Actually, they're not kids anymore. I'm sorry, guys. A lot of them are not kids anymore. Like anyone who was born in from 2000 to 2003, these people are adults. I was literally in varsity at the same time with some of them. So we can't call them kids. I think that is the shock. A lot of people born in the 80s and early 90s are shocked at the fact that the same people you saw as babies are now actually fully grown adults. I feel like some people who were born in the 80s were born in a time whereby parenting was much stricter, and there was a culture of tolerating a lot of verbal and physical abuse from parents. A lot of people born in the 80s and 90s grew up around a time where corporal punishment was a thing. Your parent hitting you for disobeying them in some capacity was normalized. Whereas we see a difference with the 2K kids. They are very vocal. They're very vocal about abuse. They're very vocal about their mental health. They're very vocal about a lot of things that people who were born in the 80s and 90s, some of them, obviously, this is not a monolith, guys. I'm not saying just because you're born in the 80s and 90s, you're a bully automatically. The same way, just because you were born in the 2000s doesn't mean you don't know a lot of history, a lot of the music from the 90s and early 2000s. These are just stereotypes that people are promoting for fun and banter, but they have some truth to it. There is a level of truth behind a lot of these stereotypes. A lot of the people who were born in the 80s were bullies. They used to bully 90s kids, now they are bullying the 2000s kids. There was even a post that I remember from Grace Mondlana. Grace Mondlana was like born in 2001, and she had posted a video where she was wearing shorts and dancing. I will link that video down below. You will see that a lot of the women who were actually saying negative comments about her body, calling her Malume Grace, calling her that she looks like her dad, like they were saying a lot of negative things about her in the comment section. And if you go to those pages, those profiles, a lot of the people who were saying that were older women who looked like they were in their early 40s and late 30s. So there is a culture of bullying that is normalized, especially from the 80s and the 90s, that we started breaking down in the 2000s, around the 2015s. We started breaking down things like body shaming, how words can affect people's mental health. Corporal punishment has been totally removed from a lot of public schools and government schools. So there is an awareness of abusive language, abusive behaviors, and the 2000s are well aware of these things, and they fight tooth and nail for their own rights. Whereas the older generation just was told to respect adults. Adults didn't have to earn respect. They just had to be respected because they were adults, even if the adult was actually a very problematic person. So the 2000s are like, obviously not all of them are like this, honestly, but the 2000s are like, we are not tolerating bullying, even from parents, even from the older generation, and they're fighting back. They're fighting back. We are getting the whiplash. As late 90s kids, we're getting the whiplash because when our sisters who were born in the 80s and 90s, our sisters and brothers born in that time, 80s, they used to say things on social media, and we would also like chime in and say these things. The 2Ks basically have basically gone through a lot of the online bullying, a lot of the online taunting. You guys can't relate. 2Ks will never understand like a lot of these things. And I feel like we deserve it. We deserve this rebuttal. We deserve being given the same energy, being told that we are the same generation as Nelson Mandela, we're the same generation as Desmond Tutu. It's hilarious. They ate with that. We're going to watch a few videos. One thing you will notice about these videos that the 2Ks ate down, they really ate it down, is the millennial pause. The millennial pause, they say it was caused by the fact that millennials were the first generation to have technology. And because technology was slower at the time, they had to constantly check and wait for a few minutes to check if the computer, the phone is actually working, waiting for it to load. So there's a tendency when they deal with technology that they pause first before actually using the technology or starting to speak. Whereas Gen Z are said to just start immediately into a conversation. There's no pause within the video. They just start immediately talking. So watch these videos and you'll see exactly these young people doing the millennial pause.
You know, today I had such a funny encounter.
Okay. You guys won't believe what happened, right?
Guys, a very good Saturday.
By the way, this is 34 years, but I look like a 2K. I just come from my 1,300 kilometer run, and I just feel so revitalized. I wish my daughter here would Patong.
So you're mad because your ID number looks like a fax number. So I posted this video, and honestly I was not even trying to rage bait. I was just trying to be funny. And then it turned into a war. Hector Peterson. I'm honestly failing to understand why they are mad. Is it because we are calling them AMA 1K, or is it because I made fun of their IDs? That's weird, bruh, because that joke was actually referenced from an old joke that was made towards my 2K. They said our ID numbers look like purity barcodes. That was funny when it was being said to us. And we all laughed. And now we flip the script and then it's World War II. Now I want to tell you for free, that is the main reason why we decided to call you guys AMA 1K. You guys take everything personal. You can't take a joke. Everything that doesn't make sense to you shouldn't be done. Everything that's the truth is disrespect to you. We're not gonna stop calling you AMA 1K because it doesn't make sense. Hey, we should be 1 point what, 1 point what. Satenda kamo sachwa kamo. Hey, we can't be the same age group as Paul Mandela. You are.
So, why is the older generation triggered by the 1K trend? I think they are triggered because a lot of the people who grew up as kids, especially people who were born in the 80s, they were kids around the 90s. The reason why this trend is so triggering, it is a level of jealousy that I believe is there. There is jealousy in watching young people who are unapologetic, young people who are vocal about what they like, about what they don't like, young people who dress in certain ways, young people who have more access to information than ever, and they tend to be more exposed to certain things earlier than other generations. The fact that the 2Ks are able to talk back when a parent is being problematic, those were things that a lot of people who grew up in the 80s and 90s tolerated for a long time. So a lot of them feel like the 2Ks need to get the same treatment. A lot of people who grew up in very toxic environments would either want their kids to not experience that toxicity, or because they think that is the right parenting style, they think they came out right, that it should be continued, that the kids are basically not being disciplined properly because they are not getting the same treatment. Also, it's the fact that jealousy, let's be honest, romantic jealousy. A lot of the 2Ks are growing up, they are adults, they're in the working world. And when it comes to dating, we're all dating the same people. Unfortunately, like the dating pool is, if you're single right now in the dating pool, you're sharing the dating pool with the 2Ks. There is that jealousy that there's a new batch of people in the dating market who are younger. Youth can be a point of jealousy, seeing someone younger, beautiful. For some people who are insecure, seeing a young, beautiful girl or a young, successful guy can be a point of jealousy. Let's also talk about the fear of mortality. I went online and I wanted to find out, what is the biggest human fear? The biggest human fear across different websites that I found is the fear of death. If you look at all these articles, they mention fear of death as something that humans are scared of because we don't know what happens after we die. And how is this related to this conversation? So it's related in the sense that seeing young people who you saw as children, seeing the 2Ks who you saw as children grow up and become adults is like a reminder of the fact that you are also getting older. And the more you grow, as you get older, the fear of death is also looming in the background. A lot of people are scared of death. A lot of people are scared of aging because you have zero control over it. So why is this a fear? People fear death because there's the unknown, and seeing people who you saw as children become adults right in front of you reminds you of your own mortality. It also reminds you that your time is running out. I'm not trying to be negative. I think aging is a beautiful thing. Some people we were in school with, we were in primary, they passed on while we were in primary. They never got to live past the age of 10, past the age of 16. There were people who passed on when I was in high school. So think about the fact that it is a beautiful privilege to be able to live long. So I don't see aging and getting older as a bad thing. The bad thing is when the obsession with looking young. There's a huge obsession with saying, oh my God, the 2Ks look older than the 90s or the 80s. And I think there might be some truth in some cases, but not all the cases, because what possible explanations could be there? Why do some 2Ks tend to look older or more mature? I saw an article online that was talking about diet. 2Ks were born in a time where diet, if you're born in the late 90s and the early 2000s, diet was a little better than people who were growing up in the 80s. Diet is better because the Black people, BEE, a lot of things were in full swing. So Black people could afford certain luxuries. They could afford taking their kids to the doctor. They could afford certain food that probably the previous generation didn't have access to. So what happens when you have good nutritional food? Your body needs food. It's not only genetics. Your genetics determine your height, but also your nutrition determines how much you will grow. So a lot of the people who were born in the 90s, in the early 80s, early 90s, specifically those particular generations, even our 70s parents, a lot of them grew up in a time where food wasn't that nutritious for some of them, because a lot of them were far removed from farms. A lot of them were working in kitchens, mines. So the food and nutrition was very different. And now kids grow up faster because they have better nutrition. They look taller. Another reason that I think is a great explanation for why 2Ks might look older is the fact that we are wearing the same makeup, the same outfits. The 2Ks are so good at makeup. If you're born earlier, like 90s and 80s, I feel like a lot of us went through an awkward phase where we were learning makeup, but we went through an ugly phase where we didn't know how to play with makeup, whereas the 2Ks have mastered makeup. They've mastered, obviously not all of them. They are not a monolith, I'm aware, but a lot of them have mastered makeup. They've mastered the aesthetics, and a lot of the aesthetics that are trending tend to look more mature. It's the makeup, it's the wigs, it's the everything. It just looks more adult. So because a lot of them dress more like adults, it makes it seem that they look older because the aesthetic is associated with a more mature audience. I think it's just stress as well. There have been studies that have been shown that stress impacts age. It impacts the length of your telomeres in your cells, basically, which affects how you age. Stress is one thing people don't talk about. The fact that late 90s kids and the 2Ks have inherited a time that is way more difficult. The fact that now having a degree doesn't guarantee you a job. Going to school, doing the right thing doesn't guarantee you a job. That's why some of them even aspire to just become influencers, because what was happening for the 80s kids who were able to finish varsity and BEE was in full swing, the money was better, the economy was better. They don't have that. Unfortunately, as the late 90s kids and a lot of 2K kids, times are different and times are harder because we are witnessing in real time the fact that corruption is the only thing that seems to be making people successful. And we thinking we're competing with people on the same level, but people are doing corruption. People are doing crime in order to have lifestyle. And the lifestyles we see on social media further exacerbate the stress. Stress is something that ages you as well, unfortunately. So this generation that we're in, unfortunately, is the most stressed generation because the pressure is getting worse. Things are not as easy as it was for people who were successful and educated, who were born in the 70s and 80s, the opportunities that were there in the early 2000s are not there now. Those are possible explanations as for why some 2Ks look older, and I don't think it's true across the board. I just think it's the aesthetics. I think it's the level of stress. I think it's also nutrition that might make them seem like they look older. There's multiple factors, and stress has been proven to be a factor that does contribute to aging. I want to hear your opinion. What do you think about the fact that the 2Ks and the 1Ks are fighting online? And I'm honestly going to say, in my opinion, the 2Ks ate with that. They are winning this one. I want to hear your opinion about this 1K trend that's happening on social media. And if you got to the end of this video, leave a number 1 or a number 2 emoji in the comment section. I look forward to hearing your opinions, darling. Bye-bye.